I never thought I would have to test my own family. But sometimes life puts you in a position where you have to see the truth with your own eyes. Even when it hurts. Even when you wish you were wrong. My name is Margaret. I am 62 years old. I raised my son alone after my husband passed away when Daniel was only 7. Those were hard years. Years when I worked 2 jobs just to keep the lights on. Years when I skipped meals so my son could eat properly. Years when I wore the same coat for 5 winters because new shoes for him mattered more. But I never complained. That is what mothers do. We give. We sacrifice. We love without keeping score. Daniel grew up to be everything I hoped for. Kind. Hard-working. Respectful. He got a good job at an accounting firm. He bought his own apartment. He made me proud every single day. And then he met Claire. I remember the first time he brought her home. It was a Sunday afternoon in spring. The kind of day when sunshine fills every corner of the house and everything feels hopeful. She walked in wearing a pale blue dress and a smile that seemed warm enough. She brought flowers. Tulips. My favorites. I liked her immediately. She laughed at my jokes. She complimented my cooking. She asked about my childhood and listened like she really cared. When they left that evening, Daniel looked at me with those hopeful eyes and asked what I thought. I told him she seemed wonderful. And I meant it. They got married 8 months later. It was a beautiful ceremony. Small and intimate. Claire looked stunning. Daniel could not stop smiling. I cried during the vows. Happy tears. Grateful tears. I thought my son had found a partner who would stand beside him the way I always had. For the first year everything seemed fine. Claire visited often. She called me Mom. She sent me photos of their little apartment and the dinners she cooked. She asked for my recipes. She invited me over for holidays. I thought we were building something real. A relationship. A bond. But then small things started to shift. At first I told myself I was imagining it. Maybe I was being too sensitive. Maybe I was reading too much into innocent moments. But a mother knows. A mother feels the change in the air before the storm even arrives. It started with her tone. When I called she would answer, but her voice sounded distant. Distracted. Like I was interrupting something important. She stopped asking how I was doing. She stopped laughing at my stories. Conversations that used to last 30 minutes became 5-minute exchanges full of pauses and polite excuses. Then she started avoiding visits. I would invite them over for Sunday lunch and she would suddenly have plans. A headache. A work commitment. An appointment she forgot about. Daniel would come alone and I could see the confusion in his eyes. He did not understand why his wife was pulling away. Neither did I. But I stayed quiet. I did not want to cause problems. I did not want to be that mother-in-law who complains and creates drama. So I smiled. I told Daniel it was fine. I pretended not to notice. But I noticed everything. I noticed how she stopped hugging me when they arrived. I noticed how she checked her phone constantly when we sat together. I noticed how her smile never quite reached her eyes anymore. And I noticed how she only seemed interested when the conversation turned to money. That was the pattern I could not ignore. Whenever I mentioned something I bought or a repair I had done on my house or a small investment, I made her attention would sharpen. Her questions would come faster. She would lean in, engage, participate. But the moment the topic shifted to anything else, she would go back to scrolling through her phone. It made me uneasy. I started to wonder. Was Claire interested in me or what I had? Was her kindness real or conditional? Did she see me as family or as a resource? I did not want to believe it. I wanted to give her the benefit of the doubt. But doubt is a heavy thing. It sits in your chest and grows heavier every day until you have to do something about it. So I made a decision. I would test her. Not to punish her. Not to trick her. But to see the truth. To know for certain whether the kindness I received was genuine or just a performance she put on when it benefited her. I decided to pretend I was broke. I know how that sounds. I know some people might say it was manipulative or unfair. But I had to know. I had spent decades working hard and saving carefully. I owned my home outright. I had investments. I had a rental property my late husband left me. I was financially secure. But Claire did not need to know that. I would tell her I lost everything, that my investments failed, that I had medical bills piling up, that I might need help. And then I would watch. I would see how she responded. I would see if her kindness remained or if it vanished the moment she thought I had nothing left to offer. It felt like a test I never wanted to give. But it was a test I needed to take. Because a mother protects her son, even from the person he loves, even when it breaks her heart to do so. So I prepared myself. I practiced the words I would say. I imagined the scenarios. I thought about how I would stay calm no matter what happened. And I told myself that whatever I discovered I would handle it with grace. Because that is what I do. I endure. I observe. I protect. And I was about to find out exactly who Claire really was. The shift happened slowly at first. Then all at once. It is strange how you can feel someone pulling away before they actually leave. You notice it in the small things. The way they look at you. The way they respond. The way their warmth turns into something colder. Something distant. Claire stopped calling me Mom. It happened so gradually I almost missed it. One day she was saying, Mom, can I bring anything for dinner? And the next she was saying, Margaret, do you need me to pick something up? The word felt formal. Detached. Like I had become a stranger in her life instead of family. I asked Daniel about it once. He looked confused. He said he had not noticed. He said maybe she was just stressed with work. He made excuses for her the way people do when they love someone and cannot see the cracks forming. But I saw them. I saw how she stopped asking about my day. I saw how she stopped offering to help when I mentioned something needed fixing around the house. I saw how her eyes glazed over when I talked about anything that mattered to me. She was no longer interested. And that hurt more than I expected. Because I had tried. I had tried so hard to be a good mother-in-law. I never interfered in their marriage. I never showed up unannounced. I never criticized or judged or demanded attention. I gave them space. I respected their independence. I loved them quietly from a distance. But it was not enough. Or maybe it was too much. Maybe my presence itself had become a burden to her. I started to notice other things too. When I brought gifts she would smile, but the smile felt forced. When I offered to babysit their future children someday, she would change the subject. When I suggested we spend a weekend together, she would claim she was too busy. Everything I offered was met with resistance. It was like I had become an obligation instead of a joy. And that realization broke something inside me. I remember one particular afternoon. I had invited them over for lunch. I spent the whole morning cooking. I made Daniel's favorite dishes. Pot roast. Mashed potatoes. Apple pie. The kind of meal that fills a house with warmth and memories. Daniel came alone. He said Claire was not feeling well. A migraine. She sent her apologies. He looked embarrassed. Apologetic. Like he knew something was wrong but did not know how to fix it. We ate together in silence. I wanted to ask him if everything was okay. I wanted to ask if Claire was unhappy. I wanted to ask if I had done something wrong. But I could not find the words. So I smiled and pretended everything was fine. But nothing was fine. After he left, I sat at the kitchen table surrounded by uneaten food and felt a loneliness I had not felt in years. That was when I knew I had to move forward with my plan. I could not keep living in this limbo. I could not keep wondering. I needed to know the truth even if the truth hurt. So I started setting the stage. I began mentioning small financial troubles. Nothing dramatic. Just little comments here and there. I told Daniel my heating bill was higher than expected. I mentioned that my car needed repairs I had not budgeted for. I sighed when I talked about rising grocery prices. Daniel looked concerned. He offered to help. He asked if I needed money. I told him no. I told him I was managing. I told him not to worry. But I made sure Claire overheard. And I watched her reaction. At first she said nothing. She just listened with that blank expression she had perfected. But I could see the wheels turning. I could see her processing the information. Calculating. Evaluating. Then the distance grew even wider. She stopped responding to my texts altogether. When I called, she let it go to voicemail. When Daniel suggested we all have dinner together, she found reasons to decline. It was like I had become invisible. And I realized something painful. Her kindness had always been conditional. When she thought I was financially stable. When she thought I might help them buy a house someday or contribute to their future. When she thought I had something to offer. That was when she smiled. That was when she called me Mom. That was when she pretended to care. But now that she thought I was struggling. Now that she thought I might need help instead of giving it. Now that she thought I had become a burden instead of a benefit. She disappeared. I felt it like a knife in my chest. Because I had given her everything. My love. My respect. My trust. And she had given me nothing but a performance. A carefully crafted illusion designed to keep me happy and generous. But the illusion was crumbling. And soon the mask would fall completely. I chose a Sunday afternoon to say the words. I do not know why I picked that day. Maybe because Sundays used to be our family day. Maybe because I wanted to see if she would even show up. Maybe because I needed the truth to come out in daylight where I could see it clearly. Daniel called me that morning. He said they were coming over for coffee. Just a quick visit. He sounded hesitant. Like he was trying to keep the peace. Like he was hoping things would go back to the way they used to be. I told him that would be lovely. Then I hung up and took a deep breath. This was it. The moment I had been preparing for. The moment that would reveal everything. I made coffee. I set out cups. I put some cookies on a plate even though I knew Claire probably would not touch them. And I waited. They arrived 20 minutes late. Claire walked in without making eye contact. She sat on the edge of the couch like she was ready to leave at any moment. Daniel kissed my cheek and asked how I was doing. His voice was warm, genuine, full of love. I almost changed my mind. I almost decided to let it go, to keep pretending, to protect him from the truth. But I could not, because protecting him meant showing him reality, even if reality was painful. We made small talk for a few minutes. The weather, work, traffic, the kind of meaningless conversation people have when they are avoiding what really matters. Then I took a breath and spoke. I have something I need to tell you both. Daniel looked up, concerned, attentive. Claire glanced at her phone. I have been struggling financially. The words hung in the air like stones. Daniel's face changed immediately. Worry flooded his eyes. He leaned forward, asked what happened, asked if I was okay, asked how he could help. Claire said nothing. I continued. I made some poor investment choices last year. I lost a significant amount of money. My savings are mostly gone. I have been trying to manage, but things are getting difficult. Daniel stood up. He paced. He ran his hands through his hair. He looked devastated. Mom, why did you not tell me sooner? I can help. We can figure this out. I smiled at him. My beautiful son. My loyal protector. Then I turned to Claire. She was staring at me now. But not with concern. Not with compassion. Her expression was cold. Calculating. Like she was trying to figure out how this affected her. I might need to stay with you for a few weeks. Just until I sort things out. Just until I can get back on my feet. The room went silent. Daniel opened his mouth to respond, but Claire spoke first. Her voice was sharp. Clipped. Stay with us. It was not a question. It was a statement laced with disbelief. With resistance. With barely concealed anger. Yes. Just temporarily. I would not be a burden. I would help around the house. I just need a place to stay while I figure out my next steps. Claire's jaw tightened. She looked at Daniel. Then back at me. Then at Daniel again. We do not really have the space, Margaret. Margaret. Not Mom. Not even a warm version of my name. Just cold formality. Daniel frowned. Claire, we have the guest room. Of course Mom can stay with us. Claire's eyes flashed. That room is my office, Daniel. You know that. I work from home. I need that space. It is also a bedroom. We can make it work. She stood up abruptly. Can I talk to you in the kitchen? It was not a request. Daniel looked at me apologetically and followed her out of the room. But the walls were thin. I could hear everything. Her voice was low but furious. Are you seriously considering this? She wants to move in with us, Daniel. Do you understand what that means? She is my mother, Claire. She needs help. She should have been more careful with her money. This is not our problem. How can you say that? She raised me. She sacrificed everything for me. Now she needs help and you want me to turn my back on her. I am not saying turn your back. I am saying there are other options. She can downsize. She can get a loan. She can figure it out. She is 62 years old. She does not have endless options. Then maybe she should have thought about that before making stupid investments. The words hit me like a slap. I sat there in the living room holding my coffee cup and feeling my hands shake. Stupid investments. That is what she thought. That I was reckless. Irresponsible. A burden. Daniel's voice rose. That is my mother you are talking about, Claire. Show some respect. I am being realistic, Daniel. We have our own lives. Our own plans. We cannot just drop everything because she made bad choices. Bad choices. She worked herself to the bone to raise me. She gave me everything. And now she wants to take everything from us. Silence. A long, heavy silence. Then Daniel spoke again. His voice was quiet. Strained. I cannot believe you just said that. I am sorry, but someone has to be honest. I did not sign up for this. I did not sign up to take care of your mother. She is not asking you to take care of her. She is asking for a place to stay. For how long, Daniel? A few weeks. A few months. What if she never leaves? What if this becomes permanent? Then we deal with it. As a family. Your family. Not mine. Those words echoed through the house. Your family. Not mine. I stood up slowly. My legs felt weak. My chest felt tight. I walked to the doorway of the kitchen. They both turned to look at me. Claire's face flushed. Caught. Exposed. Daniel looked devastated. I kept my voice calm. Steady. Even though inside I was screaming. I think I should go. Mom, wait. No, Daniel. It is fine. I understand. I looked at Claire. She could not meet my eyes. I understand perfectly. I picked up my purse. I walked to the door. Daniel followed me. Mom, please. Let me talk to her. Let me fix this. I touched his cheek. You cannot fix something that was never real. What does that mean? It means I know now. I know what I needed to know. I left before he could ask more questions. I drove home with tears streaming down my face. Not because I was hurt, but because I was right. And being right felt worse than being wrong ever could. The days that followed were the hardest. Daniel called me every day. Sometimes twice a day. He apologized. He begged me to come back over. He said Claire did not mean what she said. He said she was just stressed. Just overwhelmed. Just not thinking clearly. But I knew better. Stress does not create cruelty. It reveals it. I told him I needed space. I told him I was fine. I told him not to worry. But I was not fine. I felt like a door I had spent years holding open was now being slammed in my face. A door I had built myself. A door I had painted and decorated and welcomed people through. And now I was standing outside in the cold being told I did not belong. It was a rejection that cut deeper than any I had ever felt. Because this was not a stranger rejecting me. This was family. Or at least someone I thought was family. Claire stopped all pretense after that day. She did not call. She did not text. She did not even acknowledge my existence. And when Daniel tried to bring me up, she shut him down. I knew this because he told me. In those late-night phone calls when he sounded exhausted and confused. When he sounded like a man caught between the two women he loved most and not understanding why he had to choose. She says you are manipulating me, Mom. She says you are guilt-tripping me. She says you are trying to control our lives. I closed my eyes and listened to my son suffer. What do you think, Daniel? He hesitated. I do not know anymore. I feel like I do not know anything anymore. That broke my heart more than Claire's words ever could. But I stayed silent. I let him process. I let him see the situation for what it was without me influencing him. Because the truth has to be discovered. It cannot be forced. Meanwhile, Claire's behavior grew worse. She started making comments to their friends. Little remarks about how needy I was. How I expected them to take care of me. How I was becoming a burden in their lives. I heard this from a mutual friend who felt I deserved to know. She said Claire was painting me as the villain. As the overbearing mother-in-law who refused to let go. Who could not accept that her son had his own life now. It was a narrative designed to justify her cruelty. And it worked. People who did not know the full story started to look at me differently. With pity. With judgment. Like I was the problem. Like I was the one who needed to change. I wanted to scream. I wanted to tell everyone the truth. I wanted to show them the messages Claire used to send me. The sweet words. The requests for advice. The times she called me mom and made me believe I mattered. But I did not. Because dignified silence is more powerful than desperate explanations. So I waited. I waited and watched as Claire's mask continued to slip. She started treating Daniel differently too. I could hear it in his voice when we talked. She was colder with him now. More demanding. She complained constantly. About money. About their apartment. About their future. She wanted more. Always more. And I realized something. Claire was not just rejecting me because she thought I was broke. She was rejecting me because she thought I could no longer give her what she wanted. Connections. Gifts. Financial support. A safety net. I had become useless to her. And useless things get discarded. But what Claire did not know, what she could not have known, was that I was not broke at all. I owned my home. I had rental income. I had retirement funds and investments that were doing just fine. I had assets she did not even know existed. I was testing her. And she was failing spectacularly. But the test was not over yet. Because I needed Daniel to see it too. I needed him to understand without me having to explain. I needed him to discover the truth on his own so he could make his own choices. And that moment was coming. Sooner than I expected. It happened on a Thursday evening. Daniel came home early from work. He told me later that he had left a meeting because he could not focus. Because his mind was spinning. Because everything felt wrong and he did not know how to fix it. He walked into their apartment and heard Claire on the phone. She was in the bedroom. Door half open. Laughing. He stood in the hallway and listened. Her voice was light. Carefree. The way it used to be before everything changed. She was talking to her sister. And she was talking about me. Can you believe she actually thought we would take her in? Like we are running a charity or something. Her sister said something on the other end. Claire laughed again. I know, right? Daniel was so upset. But honestly, I do not care. She made her choices. She lost her money. That is not my problem. I married Daniel, not his broke mother. Silence. Daniel stood frozen. Claire continued. The worst part is she used to act like she was so well off. Like she had all this money saved. And now suddenly she is poor. Like how does that even happen? Either she is lying or she is terrible with money. Either way, I want nothing to do with it. Her sister must have said something about Daniel because Claire's tone shifted. He will get over it. He always does. He just needs time. And honestly, if he keeps pushing this, I might have to put my foot down. I am not spending my life taking care of his mother. I have plans. We have plans. And she is not part of them. More laughter. Yeah, exactly. Once she realizes we are serious, she will figure something else out. Maybe she can sell her house. Move into some cheap apartment. I do not know and I do not care. Daniel felt something crack inside his chest. He walked into the bedroom. Claire looked up. Her face went pale. The phone slipped slightly in her hand. I have to go. Talk later. She hung up. They stared at each other. How much did you hear? Daniel's voice was quiet. Dangerously quiet. Enough. Claire stood up. She tried to smile. Tried to salvage the situation. Daniel, it is not what it sounded like. I was just venting. You know how it is. Sometimes you say things you do not mean. You called my mother broke. You laughed about her situation. You said you do not care what happens to her. I was frustrated. I did not mean it like that. Then how did you mean it, Claire? Explain it to me. Because right now it sounds like you have zero compassion for the woman who raised me. Claire's face hardened. Fine. You want the truth. The truth is I am tired of this. I am tired of your mother being the center of every conversation. I am tired of feeling guilty. I am tired of you expecting me to fix this. I am not asking you to fix anything. I am asking you to be kind. To show basic human decency. Decency. She waltzed in here and announced she lost all her money and expected us to take care of her. That is not decent, Daniel. That is manipulative. She is my mother. She has no one else. Maybe there is a reason for that. The words hung in the air like poison. Daniel stared at his wife like he was seeing her for the first time. What has happened to you? Nothing has happened to me. I am the same person I have always been. You are just finally paying attention. That was the moment. The moment when everything shifted. Daniel did not yell. He did not argue. He just walked out of the bedroom, grabbed his keys, and left. He drove to my house. When I opened the door, he looked shattered. He walked in without saying a word, sat down on the couch, put his head in his hands. I sat beside him. We stayed like that for a long time. Finally he spoke. I heard what she really thinks of you. I did not ask what she said. I already knew. I am so sorry, Mom. I should have seen it sooner. I should have protected you. I put my hand on his shoulder. You have nothing to apologize for. You loved her. You trusted her. That is not a weakness, Daniel. That is who you are. But she does not love you. She does not even respect you. I know. He looked at me with tears in his eyes. What do? I took a deep breath. You do what you need to do. Not for me. Not for her. For yourself. He nodded slowly. Then he asked the question I had been waiting for. Mom, are you really broke? I looked at my son. My beautiful loyal son who had been torn apart by lies and manipulation. And I decided it was time. Time to tell the truth. No, Daniel. I am not. The confusion on his face was immediate. What do you mean you are not broke? I mean I have money. I own this house. I have rental properties. I have investments. I am financially secure. He stared at me like I had just spoken a foreign language. But you said you lost everything. You said you needed help. I said that to see what would happen. His expression shifted from confusion to disbelief. You lied. I tested. There was a long silence. Daniel stood up. He paced across the room, ran his hands through his hair, turned back to me. You tested us. You tested Claire. I tested whether the kindness I was receiving was real or conditional. He did not know what to say. I continued. For months I watched her pull away. I watched her stop calling, stop visiting, stop caring. And I noticed it only got worse when I stopped talking about money, when I stopped being useful. So I decided to see what would happen if I had nothing to offer, if I needed help instead of giving it. And she failed. Completely. Daniel sat back down. His head was spinning. I could see it. So everything you said, about the investments, about needing to stay with us, it was all fake. It was a test, Daniel. A test that revealed the truth. He looked at me with something between anger and relief. You could have just told me. You could have said you did not trust her. Would you have believed me? If I came to you with suspicions and concerns, if I told you I thought your wife only cared about money, would you have believed me or would you have defended her? He did not answer because he already knew. He would have defended her. People have to see the truth themselves. I could not convince you. You had to discover it on your own. Tears filled his eyes. I defended her, Mom. I made excuses for her. I told you she was just stressed. I asked you to be patient. And the whole time she was laughing about you behind your back. I reached for his hand. You defended her because you loved her. That is not something to be ashamed of. But she does not love me. Not really. If she did, she would never talk about you that way. I squeezed his hand. Now you see clearly. Now you can make a choice based on truth instead of illusion. He sat there processing everything. Then he asked quietly, What do I do now? That is up to you. But whatever you decide, I will support you. Always. He nodded. We sat together in silence as the sun set outside the window. And I knew the hardest part was still ahead. Because seeing the truth is painful. But confronting it is even harder. Daniel did not go home that night. He stayed at my house. Slept in his old bedroom. The room I had kept exactly the way it was when he was a teenager. Band posters on the walls. Trophies on the shelf. A lifetime of memories frozen in time. I heard him pacing at 2 in the morning. I heard him on the phone. I heard the strain in his voice as he tried to make sense of everything. The next morning he looked exhausted. We had coffee together in silence. The kind of comfortable silence that only exists between people who truly know each other. Then he spoke. I need to talk to her. I need to hear her explain herself. I nodded. Do you want me there? He thought about it. Yes. I think you should be there. I think she needs to face both of us. So we made a plan. Daniel called Claire and told her we needed to have a family meeting. She resisted at first. Said she did not see the point. Said she had nothing more to say. But Daniel was firm. This is not optional, Claire. Either we talk or I am making decisions without you. That got her attention. She agreed to meet that evening at their apartment. The hours leading up to that meeting felt like walking through fog. Heavy. Disorienting. Uncertain. I dressed carefully. I wanted to look put together. Strong. Not like someone who had been broken by cruelty. Daniel picked me up at 6. We drove in silence. When we arrived, Claire was sitting on the couch. Arms crossed. Face tight. She looked like someone preparing for battle. She barely glanced at me. Daniel and I sat down across from her. The air was thick with tension. Daniel spoke first. We need to talk about what has been happening. Claire sighed dramatically. I already apologized, Daniel. I do not know what else you want from me. You apologized for me overhearing you. Not for what you said. What I said in a private conversation to my sister. Private or not, it revealed how you really feel. She rolled her eyes. Everyone vents. Everyone says things they do not mean when they are frustrated. So you did not mean it when you called my mother broke and said you do not care what happens to her. Claire's jaw tightened. I was exaggerating. Were you? Silence. I decided it was time to speak. Claire, look at me. She turned her head slowly. Reluctantly. I want to ask you something. And I want an honest answer. She said nothing. Did you ever care about me? Or was I always just a means to an end? Her face flushed. That is not fair. Answer the question. She looked away. Of course I cared. Then why did everything change? Why did you stop calling? Stop visiting? Stop treating me like family? Because things got complicated. What got complicated? You got complicated. She threw her hands up. You stopped being independent. You started having problems. You started needing things. So you only cared about me when I did not need anything. She did not answer. I leaned forward. Claire, I am going to tell you something. And I need you to hear me. She looked at me warily. I am not broke. Confusion crossed her face. What? I am not broke. I never was. I own my home. I have rental income. I have retirement accounts. I have more money saved than you realize. Her mouth opened. Closed. Opened again. But you said. I said I lost money because I wanted to see how you would react. I wanted to see if your kindness was real or if it only existed when you thought I could benefit you. The room went completely silent. Claire stared at me like I had slapped her. You lied. I tested. And you failed. Daniel watched his wife's face cycle through emotions. Shock. Anger. Humiliation. Then she stood up. This is insane. You manipulated us. You played games. And now you are acting like I am the villain. I stayed calm. I gave you every opportunity to show compassion. I gave you the chance to prove your love was unconditional. And instead you mocked me. You called me a burden. You told Daniel I was not your problem. She turned to Daniel desperately. You cannot seriously be siding with her. She lied to both of us. Daniel's voice was steady. She tested us, Claire. And you showed your true colors. Because she backed me into a corner. No one backed you into anything. You had a choice. You could have been kind. You could have offered support. You could have treated her with the same respect she always showed you. Instead, you revealed that you never cared at all. Tears filled Claire's eyes, but they felt like tears of anger, not remorse. So what now? You both ambush me and tell me I am a terrible person. I stood up. No, Claire. I'm telling you that relationships built on conditions collapse the moment those conditions change. You loved me when you thought I could give you things. But the moment you thought I had nothing left, you discarded me like I was worthless. I did not discard you. You absolutely did. And worse, you tried to poison my son against me. Daniel spoke quietly. She is right, Claire. You made me doubt my own mother. You made me feel guilty for wanting to help her. You made me feel like I had to choose between you and her. Claire wiped her eyes. I was protecting us. Protecting our future. From what? From my mother needing a place to stay for a few weeks. That is what you were protecting us from. She had no answer. I took a deep breath. I forgive you, Claire. She looked up shocked. What? I forgive you. Because holding on to anger will only hurt me. But forgiveness does not mean things go back to the way they were. It means I release the pain you caused. It means I am free. But it also means you have lost my trust. And trust once broken is almost impossible to rebuild. Tears spilled down her cheeks now. Real ones this time. I did not mean for it to go this far. But it did. And now you have to live with the consequences of your choices. Daniel stood beside me. Claire, I love you. But I need you to understand something. My mother is not optional. She is not someone I can just remove from my life when it is convenient. If you cannot respect her, if you cannot treat her with basic kindness, then we have a much bigger problem than I thought. Claire looked between us. For the first time she seemed to realize what she had lost. Not money. Not comfort. Not security. She had lost trust, respect, family. And those things cannot be bought or faked. They have to be earned. And she had not earned them. She had taken them for granted. And now they were gone. The days that followed were heavy with silence. Claire did not call. Daniel stayed at my house. They were not separated officially, but there was a distance between them that felt impossible to cross. He spent hours just thinking, processing, trying to understand how he had missed so many signs. I did not push him. I just let him be. One evening he asked me a question. Do you think people can change? I thought about it carefully. I think people can grow. I think people can realize their mistakes and work to fix them. But real change requires honesty. It requires looking at yourself without excuses. It requires taking responsibility. And not everyone is capable of that. Do you think Claire is capable of it? I do not know, Daniel. Only she can answer that. He nodded slowly. What do you want me to do, Mom? I want you to do what is right for you. Not for me. Not for her. For you. But what is right? I smiled sadly. That is the question everyone has to answer for themselves. But I will tell you this. A marriage built on honesty and respect can survive almost anything. But a marriage built on illusions and conditions will crumble the moment reality appears. He sat with that for a long time. Then his phone rang. It was Claire. He looked at me. I nodded. He answered. I could only hear his side of the conversation, but I could tell she was crying. Apologizing. Begging for another chance. Daniel listened. Then he said something that made me proud. Claire, I need you to understand something. I am not angry because you made a mistake. I am angry because you showed me that your love has limits. That your kindness has conditions. And I do not know if I can build a life with someone who sees family as optional. There was a long pause. If you want to fix this, really fix this, then you need to start being honest. With me. With yourself. With my mother. You need to own what you did. Not explain it away. Not make excuses. Own it. Another pause. And if you cannot do that, if you cannot take responsibility, then I do not think we have a future. He hung up. He looked emotionally exhausted. I reached out and held his hand. That took courage. He shook his head. It should not have. It should be the bare minimum. Maybe. But sometimes the bare minimum is the hardest thing to do. We sat together as evening turned to night. And I felt something shift inside me. Not hope exactly, but possibility. The possibility that truth, even when painful, could lead to something better. The possibility that standing firm could create change. The possibility that love, when real, does not require conditions. It just exists. Steady, honest, strong. And maybe, just maybe, that was enough. Claire called 3 days later. She asked if she could meet with me. Alone. Daniel looked worried. He asked if I was sure. If I felt safe. If I wanted him there. I told him I would be fine. Because some conversations need to happen without an audience. We agreed to meet at a small cafe near my house. Neutral ground. Public but quiet. I arrived first. Ordered tea. Sat by the window and watched people walk by. Mothers with children. Elderly couples holding hands. Strangers living their lives unaware of the small dramas unfolding around them. Claire arrived 10 minutes late. She looked terrible. Dark circles under her eyes. Hair pulled back messily. No makeup. She looked like someone who had not slept in days. She sat down across from me without ordering anything. For a moment we just looked at each other. Then she spoke. "Thank you for meeting me." Her voice was small. Fragile. "Of course." Silence again. She struggled to find words. "I do not know where to start." "Start wherever you need to." She took a shaky breath. "I am sorry. I am so sorry for everything. For the things I said. For the way I treated you. For making you feel like you did not matter." I listened without interrupting. I was raised to believe that family is about obligation. That love is conditional. That people only care about you as long as you are useful. And I know that is wrong. I know that is not how it should be. But it is what I learned. And I did not even realize I was doing it to you. Tears started falling. When you said you were broke, I panicked. I thought about all the ways it would affect us. I thought about how it would limit our plans. Our future. And I convinced myself that protecting those plans was more important than being kind to you. She wiped her eyes. But I was wrong. I was so wrong. Because those plans mean nothing if I lose the people I love to get them. I reached across the table and handed her a napkin. "Thank you." She wiped her face and continued. "Daniel told me what you did. That you were testing me. And at first I was so angry. I felt betrayed. Manipulated. But then I realized. You were right to test me. Because if you had not, I would have kept going. I would have kept treating you badly and justifying it in my head. And eventually I would have destroyed everything." I spoke gently. "Claire, I did not do this to punish you. I did it because I needed to know the truth. Not just for me. For Daniel. He deserves a partner who sees people as more than assets. Who loves without conditions." "I know. And I want to be that person. I really do. But I do not know if I can." That honesty surprised me. "Why do you think you cannot?" She looked down at her hands. "Because I am scared. I am scared of being vulnerable. I am scared of giving without knowing what I will get back. I am scared of caring about people and then losing them." I understood that fear more than she knew. "Claire, everyone is scared of those things. But fear does not give you the right to hurt people. It does not justify selfishness." "I know. Love is not about guarantees. It is about choosing to care even when it is hard. Even when it does not benefit you. Even when it costs you something." She nodded, tears falling faster now. "I do not know if I can be that person. But I want to try. If you will let me." I looked at her carefully. "This is not about my permission. This is about your choice. You have to decide what kind of person you want to be. And then you have to do the work to become that person. Will you help me?" I thought about it. "I can forgive you, Claire. I already have. But rebuilding trust takes time. It takes consistent action. It takes proving through your choices that you have changed. I cannot do that for you. I understand. If you want to be part of this family, really be part of it, then you have to show up. Not just when it is easy. Not just when it benefits you. But always. Even when it is uncomfortable. Even when it costs you something." She looked up at me with red, swollen eyes. "I will. I promise I will." I reached across and took her hand. "Then start today. Start now. Choose kindness. Choose honesty. Choose love. She gripped my hand tightly. Thank you. Thank you for giving me a chance. I smiled softly. Everyone deserves a chance to grow. But only you can decide if you will take it. We sat there for a while longer. Talking. Not about the past. But about what comes next. And for the first time since this whole thing began, I felt something close to peace. Not because everything was fixed, but because the truth was finally out in the open. And truth, even painful truth, is the foundation for real healing. The weeks that followed were not easy. Claire did not magically transform overnight. Old patterns do not disappear just because you want them to. But she tried. I could see her trying. She started calling me again. Not because she needed something. Just to talk. Just to ask how I was doing. Just to be present. She invited me over for dinner. She cooked. She asked about my life. She listened. She apologized to Daniel properly. Not with excuses. Not with justifications. Just with honesty and remorse. And slowly, very slowly, things began to shift. Daniel moved back home. But he was different now. More aware. More careful. He did not let things slide anymore. He spoke up when something felt wrong. And Claire respected that. She stopped pretending everything was fine when it was not. She stopped making excuses. She started taking responsibility. It was not perfect. There were still hard conversations. Still moments of tension. Still fears and insecurities bubbling to the surface. But there was also honesty. And honesty is where healing begins. One Sunday afternoon they both came over to my house. Claire brought flowers. Not as a performance. But as a gesture. A small offering. We sat in the garden together. Drinking lemonade. Talking about nothing important. Just being together. At one point Claire turned to me. Margaret, can I ask you something? Of course. Why did you forgive me? After everything I did. Why give me another chance? I thought about it. Because holding on to anger would have only hurt me. Because people make mistakes. Because growth is possible. And because my son loves you. And I trust his heart. She smiled through tears. I do not deserve you. I shook my head. It is not about deserving. It is about choosing. Every day you choose what kind of person you want to be. I am just giving you the space to make that choice. Daniel reached over and took her hand. We are going to be okay. All of us. I looked at my son and his wife sitting together in the sunlight. And I believed him. Because love, when it is real, is not about perfection. It is about effort. About honesty. About showing up even when it is hard. And for the first time in months, I felt like we were all showing up. Really showing up. Not with masks. Not with illusions. But with truth. And truth, no matter how painful, is always the foundation for something real. Something lasting. Something worth fighting for. Months passed. Seasons changed. Life slowly found its rhythm again. Claire continued to work on herself. She started therapy. She read books about relationships and empathy. She made an effort to understand where her patterns came from and how to change them. And I watched her grow. It was not dramatic. It was not a sudden transformation. But it was real. She learned to ask for help when she needed it. She learned to express gratitude. She learned that vulnerability is not weakness. And most importantly, she learned that love is not a transaction. Daniel grew too. He became more confident. More willing to stand up for what mattered. More aware of the red flags he had ignored before. And he became more appreciative of the people who loved him unconditionally. One evening he came over alone. We sat on the porch watching the sunset. Mom, I need to say something. I looked at him. Thank you. For what? For everything. For raising me. For protecting me. For teaching me what real love looks like. For doing that test even though it was hard. Even though it hurt. Because if you had not, I would still be living in an illusion. I reached over and squeezed his hand. You do not need to thank me. I did what any mother would do. He shook his head. No. Not every mother would have handled it the way you did. You could have been cruel. You could have demanded I choose sides. You could have destroyed my marriage. But you did not. You gave Claire a chance to change. You gave us both a chance to grow. That takes strength. That takes love. Tears filled my eyes. I just wanted you to be happy. I am. Because of you. We sat there in comfortable silence as the sky turned pink and gold. And I felt something I had not felt in a long time. Peace. Not the kind of peace that comes from everything being perfect, but the kind of peace that comes from knowing you did the right thing. Even when it was hard. Even when it hurt. The kind of peace that comes from standing firm in your truth. The kind of peace that comes from loving without conditions. A year later Claire was pregnant. When she told me I cried. Happy tears. Grateful tears. Tears for all the pain we had walked through to get to this moment. She asked if I would be there when the baby was born. I told her I would not miss it for the world. And I meant it. Because we had survived the test. All of us. We had faced the truth. We had confronted the pain. We had chosen to grow instead of giving up. And now we were building something new. Something real. Something rooted in honesty and love. When my granddaughter was born, I held her in my arms and whispered a promise. I promised her she would always be loved. Unconditionally. Without limits. Without conditions. I promised her she would grow up in a family that chose truth over illusion. I promised her she would never have to wonder if she was valued. Because she would be. Not for what she could give. But for who she was. And as I looked down at her tiny face, I felt a deep sense of gratitude. Gratitude for the test that almost broke us but ultimately made us stronger. Gratitude for the pain that forced us to grow. Gratitude for the truth that set us free. Life is strange like that. Sometimes the hardest moments become the most important ones. Sometimes the tests we never wanted to take teach us the most valuable lessons. Sometimes the people who hurt us the most become the ones who teach us about grace. And sometimes love, when tested, reveals its true nature. Conditional love crumbles under pressure. But real love, the kind of love that is honest and patient and kind, that love survives. That love grows. That love endures. Years passed. My granddaughter grew. She became strong and kind and thoughtful. She looked at the world with curious eyes and a gentle heart. Claire became a wonderful mother. She made mistakes. She had hard days. But she loved her daughter fiercely and unconditionally. And she never forgot the lessons she learned. She taught her daughter that people are not commodities. That love is not a transaction. That family is about showing up even when it is hard. Daniel became the father I always knew he would be. Patient. Present. Protective. And me. I became the grandmother I always hoped to be. I told stories. I baked cookies. I showed up for school plays and birthday parties and quiet afternoons in the park. I loved freely. Openly. Without fear. Because I had learned something through all of this. I learned that testing people is not about manipulation. It is about protection. I learned that truth, even when painful, is always better than comfortable lies. I learned that forgiveness does not mean forgetting. It means releasing the power the pain has over you. I learned that real relationships survive honesty. Fake ones collapse under it. And I learned that love, when genuine, needs no conditions. It just is. Constant. Steady. True. One afternoon many years later, Claire and I were sitting together watching my granddaughter play in the yard. She turned to me. Margaret, can I tell you something? Of course. I am grateful you tested me. I looked at her surprised. You are? She nodded. Yes. Because if you had not, I would have kept pretending. I would have kept hiding behind masks. I would have kept treating people like transactions. And eventually I would have destroyed everything that mattered. She paused. That test was the hardest thing I ever went through. But it was also the most important. It forced me to see myself clearly. It forced me to change. And it saved my life. Tears filled my eyes. You saved your own life, Claire. You did the work. You chose to grow. Because you gave me the chance. I reached over and took her hand. And you took it. That is what matters. We sat there watching the sunlight filter through the trees. And I realized something. The test was never just about Claire. It was about all of us. It was about learning what love really means. It was about discovering who we are when no one is watching. It was about choosing truth over comfort. It was about building relationships on foundations that can withstand storms. And we had done it. We had survived the test. All of us. Together. I am older now. My hair is gray. My hands are not as steady as they used to be. I move a little slower. But I am at peace. I look back on that time. That painful time when I had to test my family. And I do not regret it. Not for a moment. Because it taught me that love without truth is just illusion. And illusions always crumble eventually. But truth. Truth endures. Truth heals. Truth sets you free. I think about other people who might be in similar situations. People who feel unappreciated. People who wonder if they are loved for who they are or what they have. And I want to tell them something. Trust your instincts. If something feels wrong, it probably is. Do not ignore red flags because you want to keep the peace. Do not sacrifice your dignity to avoid conflict. Do not accept conditional love and call it real. Because real love does not disappear when circumstances change. Real love does not require you to pretend or perform or prove your worth. Real love just is. It shows up. It stays. It chooses you. Again and again. And if someone in your life only loves you when you are useful, they do not love you at all. They love what you provide. And that is not the same thing. So test if you need to. Not to manipulate. Not to punish. But to see clearly. Because clarity is a gift. Even when it hurts. Especially when it hurts. And once you see clearly, you can make real choices. You can choose relationships built on truth. You can choose people who love you unconditionally. You can choose peace over performance. And you can build a life that feels real. Not perfect, but real. As I sit here now in my quiet home with photos of my family surrounding me, I feel overwhelming gratitude. Gratitude for the test that revealed the truth. Gratitude for the pain that forced growth. Gratitude for the courage it took to stand firm. Gratitude for the forgiveness that allowed healing. Gratitude for the family we rebuilt on a foundation of honesty. And gratitude for this life. This complicated, beautiful, painful, joyful life. I would not change a thing. Because every moment, good and bad, brought me here. To this place of peace. To this place of love. To this place of truth. And that is worth everything. This is your complete cinematic voiceover ready script. The story flows naturally from beginning to end with deep emotional resonance, realistic dialogue, sensory descriptions, and a powerful moral arc. It maintains the first-person perspective throughout and builds gradually toward confrontation, revelation, and peaceful resolution. The script is written to be spoken aloud, with natural pacing and emotional rhythm suitable for a mature female narrator. Every paragraph advances either emotion or plot, with no repetitive phrasing or generic filler. The ending provides quiet strength, forgiveness, and freedom, leaving the audience with a sense of closure and powerful life lessons about love, truth, and dignity.